Hello, I'm Tom Wilkinson, and welcome to the Thinking in English podcast, a podcast aimed at intermediate to advanced level English learners. On today's episode, we will look at the history of the word tea. With few exceptions, there are only 2 words for tea around the entire world. How did this happen? And how is it connected to globalization and colonialism? Thinking in a foreign language is a vital step on the road to fluency, and this podcast aims to help you achieve this by discussing various topics ranging from current events to science, philosophy, economics, and much more. All transcripts of the podcast are available on the Thinking in English blog. The website address is thinkinginenglish.blog, but the links are all in the description. You can see the vocabulary lists, comprehension questions, and articles. They're all there for you to read. We are now also available, or the podcast, should I say, is now also available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and almost everywhere you listen to podcasts. So please feel comfortable and choose the best place for you. First, here is today's vocabulary list. As always, the written list is in the description of the podcast and also available on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Beverage. Beverage. A beverage is a drink of any type. For example, hot beverages include tea, coffee, and hot chocolate. Puzzling. Puzzling. If something is puzzling, it is difficult to explain or understand. For example, Interstellar is a rather puzzling film. Colonialism. Colonialism. This refers to the control by one country over another and its economy, or support for such control. For example, the impact of colonialism is still felt throughout Africa. Globalisation. Globalisation. This is the development of closer economic, cultural, and political relations among all of the countries of the world, as a result of travel and communication becoming easy. For example, optimists say globalization means more cultural choices for everyone. Dialect. Dialect. A dialect is a form of language that people speak in a particular part of a country, containing some different words and grammar. For example, some poems are written in a northern dialect. Coastal. Coastal. Coastal means positioned on or relating to the coast. For example, in the UK, coastal towns are very busy in the summer. Approximately. Approximately. This means close to a particular number or time, although not exactly that number or time. For example, the job will take approximately 3 weeks and cost approximately £1,000. With the exception of water, tea is the most popular drink in the entire world. It is more popular than coffee, more popular than milk, more popular than soda. In fact, data from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization suggests that the world drinks about 6 billion cups of tea a day. I, myself, probably drink at least 4 cups a day, while the rest of my family drinks even more. As a child, whenever I visited my grandma, I was always amazed how much tea she drank, at least 10 cups a day. Tea is the national drink of both China and India, the world's 2 most populous nations, as well as my country, the UK. Moreover, it has been estimated that we have been drinking tea for almost 5,000 years. So, considering this incredibly long history of tea and the massive diversity of places the beverage is drunk, it is puzzling that there are only 2 words for tea. That might shock you, but think about it. With few exceptions, the world has only 2 words for tea. One is like the English tea. I won't try to pronounce all of the different variants, but in French, Spanish, and even Afrikaans, the word is very close to tea. The other one is some variation of cha, found all across Asia. In Mandarin, Cantonese, Japanese, Korean, Arabic, Hindi, Turkish, Russian, and even in East African languages like Swahili, it is cha or chai, shai. In Indonesian, Sri Lankan languages, Afrikaans, West African languages, Italian, Dutch, and other European languages, it is tea or te or te. But why? How can such a popular and ancient product only have 2 names? Well, the reason is connected to the history of colonialism and globalization, and the early years of international trade. The origins of both words can be found, of course, in China and in Chinese languages. Tea has been drunk in China for thousands of years and has become an incredibly important part of their culture. The term cha is found in many different varieties and dialects of China. As China traded with its neighbors, the word cha began to spread. The Silk Road is the name we give to the ancient trade route connecting east to west, China to the Middle East and Europe. As China's national drink was taken across land to be traded in India, Persia, Central Asia, and further afield, the name was also taken across the Silk Road. Over the last 2,000 years, the word cha has spread by land from country to country and language to language. The word tea, like cha, also has roots in China. Although the word tea is written the same in all of the languages of China, it is pronounced differently in some, most notably in the Minnan dialect, a language spoken in the coastal Fujian region of China, as well as in Taiwan and other overseas Chinese communities. The word there is pronounced like tea. But how did this word spread around the world to reach West Africa and Europe? This is the part of the story involving colonialism. The tea-like word used in coastal Chinese languages spread to Europe through the Dutch, who became the main traders of tea between Europe and Asia in the 17th century. The main Dutch ports in East Asia were in Fujian and Taiwan, and as I already mentioned, these 2 places did not say cha, but instead said tea. It was Dutch trade then, from their colonial bases in coastal China and Taiwan, that spread the word south to Indonesia and Malaysia, across to Sri Lanka, and then through to West Africa and Europe. If your country first got tea by land, you probably say cha or something similar. If your country first received tea by sea, you probably say tea or something similar. Of course, there are exceptions to this. Japan, for instance, is an island, so must have received tea by sea, but says cha. The key here is that Japan had tea long before the Dutch arrived in Asia. Other places which have different words for tea, such as Burma or Myanmar, normally grow tea naturally. Maybe the most interesting example is Portugal. Portugal is one of the few Western European countries to not say tea, maybe the only Western European country. Instead, they say chai or cha. Why? Well, the Dutch were not the first Europeans to trade directly with Asia. The Portuguese beat them there, colonizing Taiwan first and trading through the port of Macau. However, in Macau they say cha, so this is the term that became used in Portuguese. So here is today's final thought. Language is such an interesting thing to study. Not only does it allow us to communicate with each other, but it also changes the way we think and provides clues about our history. We think of the current world today as being especially global and international. People moving around the world, trade between countries growing every year. Language, however, shows us that our world has always been international. We have always traded, mixed, and shared aspects of our cultures. Tea and cha is a great example. There are only 2 words around the entire world for such a widely used product. This is incredible when you think about how large our vocabularies have become. British English and American English cannot even agree on whether to say sidewalk or pavement, cell phone or mobile phone, trousers or pants. But most of the world agrees on the word for tea. What other words in your languages are foreign or borrowed? And where do they come from? Approximately 60% of English vocabulary is borrowed from Latin languages like French. How about your languages? How well do you know the history of your vocabulary? Here are today's comprehension questions. As always, the questions and answers are written in the description of the podcast and can also be found on our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. Link also in the description. What is the name of the ancient trade route between China and the Middle East? What country spread the word tea around the world? Where did Portugal trade from in Asia? Thank you for listening to today's episode of Thinking in English. Please share this episode with your friends, check out our social media links and contact in the description, and please send us a message. We really appreciate all of your feedback and lovely messages you've been sending. If you have any ideas for topics, future podcast guests, or other learning formats, please let us know. And please check out our blog, thinkinginenglish.blog. And also leave us a rating, especially on Apple Podcasts, or follow us on Anchor. Anything you can do can really help us. Thank you for listening again, and I'll see you next time.